right now, I'm going to hand it over to Ketaki. Ketaki has a floor from 12:07 p.m. to 12:25-ish. From 12:25 to the top of the hour by 1 p.m., 1:05 maybe, if Ketaki can stay back for another 5-7 minutes, that's your time to ask questions. So if you want to put your questions already in the chat, you can, but understand that we are not going to get through those questions until that time. At 12:25, when I open the floor to folks, please have your hands ready to be raised like this. And when you do have your hands raised, we need to be civil toward each other. And what I mean by that is, let's have a conversation, not a monopolistic monologue, which means if you have a question, keep it to one question because other folks have questions too. And I want Kedaki to get through as many questions as possible. So please keep it to one question, not question number 1B, just one question. All right, folks. Ketaki and I, we met a couple of weeks before after she announced her success story on Slack. And I got on a call with her. And as much as I wanted to be happy for her, listen, I was a little bit jealous. I was like, damn, man, this girl, she just came to the US 3 years in, already has a freaking EB1. What the hell is going on? And as I dug deeper through her story, what I realized is the decisions that she made and the journey that she took and the choices that she made completely validated the outcome that she got. If you're here looking for a quick fix, maybe you're not going to get that. What you are going to get is the work ethic that it takes and the systematic thought process and execution that it takes to get EB1 done at this short period of time. So I really hope that you latch into that. And it's okay, man. If you feel a little bit jealous, if jealousy kicks you in the butt and gets the job done, feel jealous, feel spiteful, feel inspired, whatever the fuck. Just get the job done. So that's why I've brought Ketaki on board. Ketaki, I cannot wait to rehear your story and for everybody over here to be inspired by your story and take that first step toward extraordinariness. So over to you, Ketaki.
Thank you. And I do have a slide dedicated to you, Aditi. You do not know that, but
listen, everybody pay attention to that particular slide, okay? Don't care about the others, just that one.
So do you see I hope you don't see the slideshow, just the main slide, right?
No, we see the slides on the side, so it's not full screen. If you're asking me that
No, it's
question.
not. No? Okay. So I'm sharing the other screen. Now is it better?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. Nice to connect with all of you. And I really appreciate the folks joining in from India. I know I hate the calls. I hate the late night calls after 10 p.m. So really appreciate you being here. And I hope to justify all the time that you are going to spend with me. So I want to start, and I thought a lot about this title when I was putting this slide deck together. But I want to start to talk about what really drove me to get the extraordinary visa. And it was the fact, and Aditi also wrote a post about this a while ago, which really resonated with me. And I want to paint a picture for you. So there was, consider a Sunday morning, and I get to have a breakfast, a very nice breakfast, homemade breakfast for an hour. And I sit there eating my breakfast with complete mental peace, not worrying about if I should be working on a Sunday morning, if I should be going above and beyond to impress my employer, or if my employer gets to make decisions about my career and my life. So that is the mental peace that EB1A has given me. And it is a chase to earn the extraordinary visa to actually enjoy the ordinary moments of life, to enjoy the simple joys of life. So when I started working on the EB1A visa, I thought about it. I thought I would apply for it. The first person that I talked to was Aditi. And this is the slide, Aditi, that is dedicated to you. So I was under the assumption that for EB1A, you need a PhD. And I had come to the US on an L1. So I only had a bachelor's at that point, and I still only have a bachelor's. So having only having a bachelor's and actually thinking about what would happen if I don't have a PhD, and would I even be eligible to think about EB1A. So that was a myth broken by Aditi when I talked to her for about 30 minutes. And all she did in that call was not giving specific action items, but actually make the goal accessible for me. And she made me eligible to think about it. And that's what I aim to do through this session today. If you are someone who thinks EB1A is unattainable for me, or EB1A is far-fetched, it's a far-fetched dream, or maybe I'm going to take 10 years to get there, I do not have it in me, then hopefully by the end of this session, you will get very accessible strategies that makes you dream about EB1A without any fear in mind and makes you go at it with complete confidence. So that is going to be the objective of my session. So to start with my timeline for EB1A approval, I landed in the US. My first steps in the US were on 29 September 2022. I still celebrate that day each year for my anniversary in the US. But this was when I came to the US on an L1B. So my employer transferred me to the US for a specialized knowledge task that I had. I was working in India for about 4.5 years before that, and they transferred me to their office in California to continue the work and understand global operations. So September 2022, I landed in the US, and then the first time in 2023 when I was applying for H1B and I didn't get it, that was my first hit of what can I do based on merit that I would not get based on my luck, because it was a huge shocker for me that something like this existed in the US and it was a lottery that I really couldn't control. So it started with that. That was the thing. That was one instance that instigated me to start working on EB1A. And then I kept going. If you remember in 2024, there were two H1B lotteries. I didn't make it through any of those. So that further pushed me, gave me the fire that I needed to keep going on EB1A. So I multiplied the momentum on this goal. And then January 2025, I had my EB1A approved. So if you think about it, I spent about 1.5 years in total just working on the EB1A since I started, since I till I got the approval. I spent about 1.5 years working on this and really going at it with all my energy, all my heart and soul. So that was my EB1 approval timeline. But to give all of you a glimpse into my background, I have a bachelor's in computer science and engineering from NIT Silchar, which is in Assam in India. And since then, I joined in 2017. I joined Oracle as a software engineer. So I had two promotions in India while I was working in this field, and then I was looking to switch to product management. So I applied for masters in the US, and these were specializing in product management field. And when I resigned from my company, it was a retention strategy that they offered me a job in the US as a product manager. So that's how I came to the US in 2022 to pursue product management in my career. And I've been in love with the field ever since. So this is my background, and now I want to start talking about how I got started with EB1A. What are the specific criteria that I applied to? And again, some of these we might answer in detail as we get to your questions. But I want to give you an overview of my journey so you have a foundation to start with. So I applied for about 7 criteria. So everything, the 8 criteria that that anyone in the STEM field targeting for EB1A can target. And out of those, high salary wasn't for me because, to be completely honest with all of you, when I came here on an L1, the salaries are not as comparable as to what a person would earn after masters. So taking that into account, I did not apply for the high salary criteria, but I applied for all others. Now, before we get started and I talk about what did I do in in all of this criteria, I want to talk about the common myths that I had, some of which Aditi broke for me, and I want to do that for you today. So you do not need a PhD for EB1A. I only had a bachelor's, and you don't need patents. So when I attended a lot of sessions of people getting EB1A approvals, I saw that they had some people had 15 patents and some people had 16 patents. And yes, with patents, they were successful, but that made the goal inaccessible to me because I thought, what if my nature of work does not involve patents, and what if it takes me a decade to get to a point where I can publish a patent? Does that mean I cannot think of EB1A until then? And the answer is no. You definitely can think of EB1A even if you do not have a PhD, even if you do not have patents, even if you do not have research papers and citations. It all depends on the field that you're applying in. So I'll come to that in a while. So this is me completely frustrated at that point, trying to tell people my nature of work does not involve publishing papers, my nature of work does not involve getting patents. What do I do? And I want to show you a quick picture of the journal. So this is a journal that my boyfriend gifted to me when I had started working on EB1A, and it was a way for me to get really motivated. So even in school, I always used to get new stationery to get motivated to work on a goal. And this was a journal that I got to start noting things down about EB1A, and it just pushed me through to have a really positive feeling about it. So do whatever it takes to get yourself motivated, have a cup of coffee, get a journal, whatever motivates you to get started with complete force on this goal. And now I want to go to the golden rules of EB1A. We often know about this, but we forget this along the way. So one thing that you have to remember is in EB1A, when you are applying, when you're sending in your petition, you have a niche, you define a field under which you will be judged. And based on that field, you're only going to be judged relative to your peers. So if you're a product manager, if you're applying in this field, then you're going to be judged in relation to other product managers. And you have to show that you are in the top of your field, but it is relative to your peers, not in the world. So if I'm a product manager and my nature of work does not involve patents and papers, that means any other product manager is going through the same situation. And judging relatively, that means I can still apply for EB1A because I have other evidences that I can show to justify that I'm in the top of my field. And your lawyer is your only source of truth. So when you get started with your EB1A, sessions like these help a lot, obviously. So you're doing a great job of attending these sessions to understand how to get rid of those myths in your head, which later on turn into a self doubt and just lead to you delaying that goal. But your lawyer is your only source of truth. So the sooner you talk to your lawyer and the sooner you stick to one lawyer and start taking advice from them, it is easier to understand how to achieve EB1A. Because for instance, when I was applying, when I started with my journey, I started with the membership criteria, and then I was applying for IEEE and BCS, which my lawyer had told me about. And then I talked to some people and they said, oh, this does not count for EB1A. USCIS is not accepting any of this. So do not go for this criteria. Do not even target for this criteria. And that was all noise. Everyone had some or the other opinion about what works and what does not work. And the truth is that it is judged holistically based on your profile and based on your field. So you never know until your lawyer comes and tells you. So remove all of that noise and try to understand that your North Star is only going to be your lawyer, and nothing about what anyone else says matters so much when you are prepping and achieving those criteria. So when you get started with EB1A, as I said, the sooner you can finalize the lawyer, the easier it is, because you will save on a lot of time in preparing for EB1A, because you get very specific actionable advice when you talk to the lawyer. So you can set up a profile review session with your lawyer, and you can go from there, identify the gaps of where you stand, where you need to be to get EB1A. And that helps you to prepare a very targeted plan to go after EB1A. And then there's a concept of baseline niche. Now, this is just a keyword that I've invented. But what it means is when you get started with your EB1A application, you have to understand what field you will be applying for. But since at that point, it is a very nascent stage of your application, you do not know what your final niche under which you will apply the petition will be. So you start with a baseline niche. So it's just an umbrella niche that you can cover all your criteria under. So to give you an example, I worked in AI, and I worked with a lot of API related stuff in my career. So I was trying to club both of these in the criteria that I was applying for. So when I started, I thought I would do something around AI, I would do something around API. but all of this would be under hospitality because I've worked in the hospitality industry for about 7 years now. So I wanted to capitalize on that. So when I talked to my lawyer, she said, do anything that is related to AI, API, product management, or hospitality. And then that became my umbrella niche. I didn't know what field we would eventually apply under, but I had a fair idea that whatever I was working towards was going to be counted in my petition because it was under this niche. So you cannot be aiming for product management and suddenly doing something in cybersecurity. That will conflict what you're doing. So remember your baseline niche and start from there. And then you can formulate an action plan going from there and working on the EB1A criteria. So with that, I want to now start talking about the 7 criteria, the evidences that I submitted for each of these. So you have a reference in mind of how you can target and understand each of these criteria. Again, I will not go into a lot of detail. That is something we can take through the questions that you send me. But this is just to understand that even without patents and research papers, you have other evidences to show that you are in the top of your field. So starting with leading role, this was the criteria that I was the most confident with. So when you start with your EB1A application, there are 8 criteria that you can target. Lawyers will ask you to typically target 6 to 7 to increase the chances of your approval. And when looking at those criteria, start with the criteria that you feel the most comfortable with because that helps to build confidence. This EB1A, when we get started with it, it's like a black box for us. And it often makes you very intimidated when you're getting started. So if you can show progress to yourself sooner in the initial stages of your application prep, then that is going to help you a lot to keep going later and to keep yourself motivated and to not give up along the way. So the leading role, I knew that I could take a letter from my skip manager and from my ex manager on all the work that I had done. So I just wrote on a piece of paper that this is what I'll be doing to submit the evidence for this role. And then I was confident that this particular criteria I'll be able to achieve. So in this, when you're writing the letters or when you're getting the letters from your manager, it is important to be very specific. So instead of just saying Ketki wrote an extraordinary product, Ketki wrote a product that processes 5 billion calls and has given us 100% increase in the number of customers since 2022 in this quarter. So something like that holds more value than just writing a very generic sentence. So I've seen a lot of letters that people write which are very generic, and it seems like something that ChatGPT can write for any profile. So it has to be something very specific. My letter was about 5 pages each, and my manager went above and beyond. And not my manager, but actually, I drafted the letter and got it signed by my managers. So you draft the letters yourself and go to the people, but you have to show them, not tell them, by showing how extraordinary you are through the examples that you share in the letter. So when approaching people, specificity is more important than seniority. So if a person is a senior director but cannot vouch for you with specific examples, you cannot go to that person. Instead, if it's your manager and can write about you in a more detailed manner, that is preferable. Next is memberships. I applied to BCS Fellow, IEEE Senior Member, and I was already an advisory board member at Dev Network through my speaking engagements. So I also added that in the application. So when you're doing membership, try to link the membership to other criteria. So for instance, if I am applying to BCS Fellow and I get the BCS Fellow membership, what if I could publish an article in the BCS magazine? Now that connects authorship to membership. And connecting criteria that way will not only help you in final merits, but it also goes to show that you aren't doing this as a checklist, but something that is being done to show how extraordinary you are. And again, only take lawyers' advice. Too many opinions can derail your case here. Next is judging. So I had a couple of papers and awards that I judged. So if you want to start with the criteria, this is one of the easiest to start with because it's very easy to reach out to people. There's always opportunity to judge awards and papers. So you can cold message people to generate leads. And something that I'll share over here is when you're cold messaging people, message at least 200 people. That's the sweet spot that I've discovered, that when you message 205 reach back, 4 ghost you, and then 1 person eventually gives you what you need. So just be shameless and message 200 people about any leads that you can generate and try to satisfy this criteria sooner than later. Next is an award. So my company had won an award by API World for the work that we were doing. So I got a letter from my manager linking that to the work that I had done and mentioning that I was the main contributor in that product which won this award. So that's how I was able to satisfy team award, and then I also won the Stevie award for product management. So for awards, whatever awards you might have received in your life till date, document everything. You don't know what counts. Your lawyer will be able to tell you that. And a lot of people underestimate the power of team awards. Team awards is anything that your company has won, and if you can connect that to your work through a letter, all of that is going to count. So do not shy away from including those team awards. Next is authorship. So for authorship, I published in the journals that you see on this screen. So if you're a product manager, these are very good journals to target and fairly easy to get into because they review your articles. But if you write it well, you can definitely get through. So you can also show upcoming articles. Articles that haven't been published but are in the pipeline can also be included in the petition, because they show you can include it in final merits, but they show that you haven't achieved this only for EP1A, but you're doing this in general, and you've always been extraordinary in your field. And even when you're approaching people for co-authorship, try to have some strategy, because if you, let's say I'm talking to a person and I want to publish an article with them, then the first time I publish an article, I can be the first author. And the next time we publish another article, they can be the first author. So if people are trying to go after EB1A, give them the strategy they need and also try to accomplish your benefit out of it. So both of those people who are co-authoring an article can use that article or use that opportunity to justify authorship in EB1A. So when you're co-authoring with people, make sure you have a strategy in mind and make sure you discuss that with them instead of later on fighting for who gets to be the first author. So discuss that upfront when you reach out. Original contribution, probably the most intimidating criteria that I was targeting at that point. But here I got a letter from a professor that I was working with, and this was a tool that we were developing for product managers that helps them to use AI to write business strategy documents and other product management related tasks. So we received a 50,000 grant from the National Science Foundation for the work that we were doing. And I was an industry mentor in that project. So I took a letter from the professor justifying this grant to my contributions. And I took a customer letter for the work that I was doing. And I'd done a lot of speaking engagements. So GHC was my biggest speaking engagement until then. So I took letters from the audience who implemented some of that work in their, some of the talk strategies that I had shared in their work. So one thing is, if you don't know how to get started on this criteria, colleges are always looking for industry mentors. This again goes to how you can cold message professors to see if you can get some opportunity around this. And whatever you have for original contribution at work, or you think this might satisfy anything that you have done beyond your job, document everything and ask the lawyer what counts, and the lawyer will be able to guide you how to go from there. So do not get intimidated by this criteria. Target it after you've at least satisfied 3 to 4 other criteria to get the confidence to achieve this one. This is something that I want to show you, where I want to show you how I documented everything. So this was a person who, based on my talk, made a doodle, and I also sent this in my petition to show USCIS that when I did a talk, what was the impact that it had, that people were putting in doodles to understand that talk in detail. So a person reached out to me on LinkedIn. Her name was Ramya, and she put together this doodle after my talk. So I sent snippets of all the feedback that people had sent me on LinkedIn for my talk, in addition to this doodle. And I don't know if that really changed anything, but it felt very good that I could strengthen my speaking engagement and connect everything to the work that I was doing. Publish material about you. This again goes to cold messaging people. So there are a lot of tech reporters in these journals, and these tech reporters always like to get someone from the industry talking about their work. It's just about how do you send them a very interesting message that is very catchy and gets them interested to write a story about you. Again, When you figure out what story do you want to share, message at least 200 people. Be absolutely shameless to get this done. I messaged 250 people and only one lead was generated, and I got a Business Insider feature because of that. So I would say be shameless, do not shy away from talking to people about this, and stay away from paid media. That's completely scam. So anything that you publish as a part of this should be completely organic. You can cold message, but do not pay. And finally, what I want to tell you is, you in EB1A, targeting EB1A, you are not alone. Your lawyer and you are a team. I talk to my lawyer every week. She kept me grounded. And because of that, I was able to completely focus on EB1A without letting my self doubt add any delay to the process. So do not consider that you're alone. Talk to your lawyer, treat your lawyer like a mentor in this process, and you'll be able to do this sooner than others. Summary, you don't have to be an Einstein to get the Einstein visa. Always rely on what your lawyer is saying. Do not let other people give you the opinion. That does not matter. Everyone has a lot of opinion about EB1A, but it is always based on your case holistically. And be shameless and relentless when you're reaching out to people. Pester people so much that until your job is done, they do not get to breathe. That's what I had done, and that's how I got things done. I had to follow up multiple times with multiple people to get my goals achieved, and I was shameless about it, but respectful at the same time. Link evidence to multiple criteria. So as I said, if you're doing something for membership, try to link it to authorship by publishing a magazine in that publication, and show upcoming initiatives for final merits. In final merits, you can include a lot of things. Like I did mentorship for 200 people in 2023. So I included that in my application. It goes to show that you aren't doing what you're doing only for EB1A, but you've always been extraordinary. So establishing that is very necessary. And document everything. Every little thing has to be documented. Be obsessed with documentation, and then let your lawyer decide what works and what doesn't. So with that, I will stop sharing. And I hope this was not a boring session for all of you.
Everybody has gone to sleep. I'm kidding. That everybody wants to know more from you. This is incredible. Thank you so much, Ketaki, for sharing your story. People have been asking if you can share a copy of the cold message that you have used.
Mm.
So, if you can,
Sure.
when you send me the PowerPoint so that I can share it with folks as well, with your
I'll
permission,
share that.
if you
Sure.
can share a snippet, that'd be great. Folks, I'm going to open the floor up for questions. Like I said, I need your help. You should ask just one question and give the floor to the next person. So I'm going to start with Akshay, and then we're going to move to Mags AI and Ravindra Kale after that. All right, Akshay, go for it.
Hi, Ketki and Aditi. Thanks for such an insightful session. So, my question is, how many total articles did you author in online platforms, and how did you show the impact of it?
So for authorship, I've published about 5 articles, and the impact was shown by my lawyer based on how many views does that journal get. So for instance, if I publish in Mind the Product, which is a very good online publication for product managers, then that has about 1 million views each month on their articles. So that's how we established the significance of the authorship.
Thank you.
Perfect. Mags.
Hey, Ketaki. Sorry, I logged in from a different account. This is Rohit. I just have a question on the expo category. I've participated in multiple exhibitions and expo representing my company in the conferences. So how do I document that? Like, there is no online presence or online article that will talk about my participation. So is there a way that you can document this?
So in this case, I would say if you can get a letter from the expo organizers mentioning that you did this session, and then get a letter from your manager or someone from your company who can vouch that you were the one who represented the company in that expo. So you can make things count by using letters as a link to the cause and the effect, right? So talking to the expo organizers and someone at your company to get letters to establish and link that to the work that you're doing. That will count.
Thank you.
Ravindra.
Hi, Ketaki. Congratulations on EB1A. My question
Yeah.
to you is, how did you go about figuring out what's the metric to show that you're top of your field in your niche?
Metric for all criteria or in general?
In general, in your niche, how did you, like, whatever you put in final merits that, uh, how did you go about figuring out that metric? Like, okay, I can show this that would basically tell USCS that I'm top of product management in AI.
So when we go to final merits, that's anything that did not count in the other criteria, you try to put it in the final merits. So I had documented everything that I had done in the 7 years of my experience. And mentorship was one of those. I'd done a lot of podcast interviews for other podcasts and then speaking engagements. So all of that I couldn't include in any other criteria. So I submitted it to my lawyer. I shared a Google Drive with her that this is everything that I've done till date. What do you think can we add in final merits? And then she included mentorship and podcast appearances or some features that didn't count in published material. She included them in final merits. So the thumb rule would be whatever does not work for other criteria works for final merits.
Thank you.
Vamsi.
Hey, thanks, Ketaki and Aditi. I have somewhat of a niche question. So I work in a high frequency trading firm, and most of my work is considered like, well, internal, like or secret. And there's not much I can talk about externally in terms of the actual work that I do. But
Mhm.
see, I do qualify for some of the uh, well, like criteria, but I could qualify for others if I try to like step out of my field, but I'm not really sure that would count. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Mhm. So, this would be more of a question for the lawyer, Vamsi, because I think I wouldn't be the right person to share that. However, if you have any letters that your supervisors can write mentioning that some of this cannot be shared externally, but we are only sharing it with the US government to mention the significance and impact of your contributions, then that kind of a letter usually is acknowledged by USCI. So you have to let USCIs know in the petition that this cannot be published externally, but it's something that you're only discussing with the US government. But the lawyer would know how to frame that better. So more of a lawyer question then.
Got it. Thanks.
Tiru.
Hi, hi, Ketaki. Thank you very much for the very informative session. So I'm interested in the original contribution. So you mentioned that you got some letters from the customer and speaking engagement letter, right? So what exactly was the speaking and what was the the evidences you got it?
Yeah, so speaking engagement, as I said, I had done multiple speaking engagements at that point. So GHC, I chose GHC because that was a very big one, and I had about 1,500 attendees in my session. So that was the biggest one I had done. So I had documented screenshots of all the people who had reached out to me after the talk saying that they enjoyed my talk or learned this from the talk. And then I messaged all those people and asked them if they could give me a letter talking about how they implemented these business strategies at work. So one of them agreed to write that letter. I drafted the letter myself, and then they were able to give me the letter. And for the customer letter, I work on a lot of APIs, and our customer has been using about 3,000 of those APIs for their integrations. So I got a letter from the customer acknowledging the impact that using those 3,000 APIs makes for their company. And I translated that to the revenue impact it brought to their company.
Okay, thank you very much.
Also, I love the doodle, by the way. That was
Yeah,
in.
it made me tear up because I never expected that this is what can come out of you sharing content on LinkedIn or you doing talks. People writing doodles like that.
Was it Ramya Tulsi, this girl? She was.
Her name was Ramya Raghunathan.
Raghunathan. Oh yeah. And by the way, USCIS loves organic stuff, right? Like so
Hmm.
sometimes what Ketaki was talking about with that, it reminded me of another EB1 recipe, and his niche was in railway sector. And he published articles just like Ketaki in magazines. And when he published it, he would talk about it on LinkedIn, and then people would read that article and give him their takeaways. And he used that as evidence rather than soliciting a artificial letter saying how great you are. So
Exactly. That's
a lot of times everyone comes down to common sense. Like ask
it
yourself.
also, yeah, it also comes down to putting in some heart into what you're doing, right?
Exactly, right? Like people can sniff bullshit from a mile away, right? Like so you can smell BS from a mile away. So it's not just a USCIS officer. So think about it from that part. So I really appreciate you sharing that doodle. It's wonderful that you included that. Hardik.
Hi, Ketki. Hi, Aditi. Thanks for the session. I had a question. For the media criteria, do thought leadership articles written by me hold weight, or it has to be something that is published about me or about my profile?
Media is always anything that is published about you. So whatever you write does not count. That goes under authorship. But this is anything that has been published about your work because it's extraordinary.
Got it. So that will be under authorship, right? Or original
Correct.
contribution, or just authorship?
Authorship, yes, if you can signify the impact, then sometimes it also counts an original contribution.
Got
But
it.
that would, yeah, the lawyer will be able to help you understand that better.
Got it. Thanks a lot.
Abhijit.
Hey, Ketki, thanks for the valuable session and knowledge. The fundamental question I had was in the beginning of your presentation, you shared that your field is the one that did not need patents, publications, and
Mhm.
also how would I know that my field also comes in the same criteria? How do I find that out?
So if you talk to the lawyer, if you set up a profile review session with your lawyer, then you can ask this question to them because they have experience of filing several EB1A cases under different fields. So they have a general idea of what is required in this field and they'll be able to tell you. So when I reached out to my lawyer also gave me an example of another person who had filed EB1A and got it approved without the original contributions criteria. And that was an eye opener for me because I thought original contribution is always mandatory. But she opened my eyes to helping me understand that it's not always necessary depending on your field.
Right. So the
So
lawyer
more of a
reviews it
lawyer
and
question.
right. So the
Yeah,
lawyer reviews it and they based off of the profiles and approval they have seen so far in the similar profile, if that can be the guiding factor.
right. So that therefore you need to reach out to a lawyer that is more knowledgeable about these things and then can guide you better.
Okay, thank you.
Rohit.
Uh, Thank you for the insightful session and kudos to you, Aditi. You get me out of my bed every day to work on it. So I need to set up some time with you. But coming back to the question, how many items you have judged and how many conference paper you wrote, get the key for this. And I'm also a product manager and I'm always skeptical that I don't think I'll qualify, but Aditi keeps me believing I will one day.
One day.
So conference papers, I only gave talks. These weren't conferences that required me to publish anything. I submitted speaking proposals. Like even if you apply to GHC, Women in Product, and all these uh, conferences, they often ask you for speaking proposals, and that's it. But they don't publish anything for that. They just publish your talk. So speaking engagements were on their own. Authorship were all the other articles that I had authored in Mind the Product, D Zone, and all of these publications. So not really any conference papers that came out that I applied with.
Okay, and how many items you judge? Because you mentioned you have IEEE judged papers.
Yeah, so about I think about 15 in total I had.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Navdeep, I've also dropped a Slack channel link. Ketaki is there too. I am there too. If you want continued support, you go there. Navdeep, go for it.
Hey, thanks, Aditi. Thanks, Ketki. I think I've been following you since long time. I had a quite smaller stint of talks with Aditi. So, Ketki, there's one question I think probably some of the people could relate to that. Uh, I have been a statistical engineer and ML engineer, and during all the my career, have wore multiple hats because when you work with clients, you have sometimes you have been asked to work as a technical product manager, sometimes an
Mm-hmm.
architect, and sometimes different role. Like it's very obvious that it's not remain same when you work for any consulting company, not with a product company, right? So how do we choose that which role, or I mean, like if there are multiple roles into our career, how do we justify that it's not architect or a product management, it's not a product management or a architect role, because it's mostly about being a technical ship, what you provide, technical solutioning, what you provide. So if you
Yeah,
can just
so the field that you apply for will be something that is a common thread across all the roles that you have pursued in your career. So in my case, my field wasn't product management, right? When I filed my petition, it was AI and enterprise integration solutions in hospitality operations. So
okay.
I picked that niche, and I'll also send this in the messages for everyone what was my niche. But I picked that field based on my role as a software engineer and product manager in the tech industry. So you have to look at all the roles and find a common thread that connects all of them under one umbrella. That's something that the lawyer will be the best to guide you in, because I had no idea how to put together a niche based on my field. So she helped me a lot to, and we drafted 20 options to go and finalize one option that hit home for me based on all the roles that I had worked in. So she gave me the options, and I was able to choose the one that was closest resonating to my profile.
Thank you.
Perfect. Raksha.
Hey, Ketki and Aditi, thank you. Thank you for scheduling this session. Super helpful. So my question is, uh, how do you actually like approach like your managers and like peers for like the uh, recommendation letters for the leading role, and like when is the like best time, like is it better like to actually like kind of prep them well in advance as you're working on your case, or is it better like you approach them once you're at a good spot and you're ready to file?
Mhm. That's a very good question. So in my case, I relied on the rapport that I had with them already. So I knew that if I would reach out to them, they wouldn't say no. And I also had some backup recommenders just in case some. So if I go to one person and they say they are not going to write the letter, I had some backup options in mind. But I would say, giving if you are getting started with EB1A, that's not the right time to get these letters. Maybe 4 weeks before filing the petition,
Mm,
that's when you get the letters, because you have already drafted the letter, you get it approved by a lawyer, your lawyer thinks everything is looking good, so you can get a verbal consent maybe 2 to 3 months in advance before taking the letter. But the actual letter, only give them 2 to 3 weeks to review, because if you give them a lot of time, they will sit and ruminate over it, and then they will get into the legal stuff where they might say, oh, let us get this verified by HR. I don't know if there might be some confidential information. So you do not want to give a lot of time to the other person to think about what can we optimize in this letter, but you want to give them the letter that this is what I've written, and if you find everything is okay, then you can approve it in 2 weeks.
got it.
So that sense of urgency is absolutely necessary for them to sign this as soon as possible. If you tell them you're going to do it and you have 3 months and 2 months in advance, then they will just take their own time.
Yep, for sure. Okay, that helps. I know Aditi has mentioned no follow-up questions, but I just want to ask you, like, did you have any independent letter of recommendations for your case? Like,
I did. The professor that I took the letter from was independent.
okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Marti and then Pratibha.
Hi, Aditi. Thank you for setting up this session. And congratulations, Katie. It's really nice to hear from someone who is not a PhD holder, so not a researcher. My question was, when you submitted your EB1A profile petition, how many speaking engagements had you already completed? and how many were projected for future as
Mhm.
going?
So when I had applied for my EB1A, if I look at major conferences, I had about 6 of them. And if I include the podcast interviews and other smaller engagements, then I had about 20 of them. But we included the 6 that were major, and all the other 20, they were put in final merits as one sentence or two sentences, saying that I also appeared on other podcasts. So it really didn't count for the major criteria. It counted maybe in final merits. The major conferences, I capitalized on them in original contributions.
Thank you.
Pratibha.
Hello. Hi, Aditi. Hi, Ketaki. Thank you for a wonderful session. So my question is more around how would you strategize your case, where some attorneys talk about very focused and targeting only top 4 criterias and just make it very strong, versus some of them are focusing on utilizing all the criterias and claim as a final merits as well. So based on the recent acceptance or rejections, which strategy would you lean towards?
So for this, I would say looking at it depends on the lawyer strategy, but the lawyer that I reached out to, she had very high standards, and she said you have to target at least 6 so that USCIS gets the opportunity to accept any 3 of them. Because what you want to do is increase your chances of approval. And when you're applying and you have some 4 criteria, then there's a bigger chance that if they don't accept 2, you will receive RFE or you might get a denial. So it's always good to target more criteria and also make them very strong. Because in my case, all the 7 were extremely as strong as I could have made them. And that was necessary because we wanted to put in a very good profile and increase our chances of approval. But even if that takes 2 years, that's okay. Make sure that when you're filing the petition, it has to be a very strong profile. You shouldn't have any regrets that maybe this could have been stronger, or I could have worked hard on this criteria. So that's for your lawyer to decide, but I would say it doesn't hurt to make all the 6 very strong.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anubhav. Lynn.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Aditi. And it's a great session, Ketaki. And Aditi, really.
So I can go later.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Aditi is a great contribution, and I am following you and read every post you posted in LinkedIn. It's a really great, useful to everyone. And when
I'll go back and I'll see if you have liked my post. Go right now after this and like my post.
Yeah. I will do that. Usually I do like every post of you. And when come to my question, and with the interest of time, and actually I'm working as a contractor through consulting company. So in that case, will there be any impact on approval? Because I think no one raised this question. Maybe everyone is full time. So this is my question. So what is your opinion on this?
Again, this is more of a lawyer question because I don't know how the contract employment would impact EB1A. I think it depends on how you file the petition and what context you give to the USCIS. But yeah, best to check with a lawyer to understand what can be done to present this in a way that does not create a problem. I don't think it should create a problem.
Okay. And the publication paper must be related to our work, Ketaki? It must be?
Yes.
Okay. But now the AI is evolving, right? So we can add that AI even though we are not using in our regular job, but we can add it, right? So if we learn and implement, we can add those things in our, the publications and all. We can relate to it. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Who was before Lingaretti? Anusha? Some Agarwal. That's all I remember. All right, Anuba, go for it.
Hi Aditi, hi Ketaki. Thanks so much. My question was about the publications. One is, how would you approach when you're talking about if you're reaching out to your professor about industry mentorship? Would you mention to them that you're trying to build your profile for an extraordinary ability visa, and therefore this is important to you? Like, what was your approach? If you could share that, and in the same breath, if you're also planning to, let's say, write a book or author, how would you, with probably the same professor or someone else, how would you show the impact of an independent piece of writing which is not on a media publication? So if you could touch upon that, it'll be helpful. I do have more questions, but I'll keep it restricted to this. I put them all
Sure.
in the chat.
Yeah, when reaching out to professors in your cold messages, I didn't mention EB1A because then I feel people take it or perceive it as you having an underlying objective, but not really being passionate about the field. So, as long as you can, I would stay away from mentioning EB1A. Even if you're doing something for EB1A, you're also doing them for your career, and you want to focus on the part where it is good for your career and you're interested in this. So, stay away from EB1A and mentioning that to the professors. And in terms of the impact, whenever you're authoring something with a person, the impact of that depends on the readership of that journal where you're publishing. So, for instance, when I published an article in BCS magazine, my lawyer included statistics about how many people read the BCS magazine each year or each month, and then how do they rely on that for their career? Because a lot of people rely on the BCS magazine for their fields, and they learn a lot from those publications. So she included that in the petition. So the impact of any authorship depends on the readership of that journal. That's how you can showcase impact for authorship. Original contribution is a whole different umbrella, but for authorship, it's fairly simple.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
We have to move on, Anuba.
Okay.
Amirtha, go for it. We're gonna come back to Amirtha. Rupa.
Hey, sorry, I thought I was my hand was down by my apologies. Um, Thank you so much, Aditi, for this session. You've been pushing us all hard to keep going, and this is fantastic, an inspiring session, Ketaki. My quick question is like, how do you know your petition and the specific criteria are actually good enough, or you have put it in a good enough manner and you're ready to submit?
I would rely on the lawyer's confidence in my petition to take that decision. So, for instance, when I reached out to my lawyer, she said I was about 50% there. And then I worked on all the gaps. And then at one point, I again went to her and we discussed, am I ready now? And she said, now you're almost 80% there. Get these letters and we'll start filing. So that's a decision that your lawyer has to take, but you have to be connected to the lawyer regularly.
Got it. So from your perspective, how did you decide? Like, did you also have a bar, or you just completely went with the
I
lawyer's guidance?
relied,
Okay.
I
Okay.
rely on the
Got it.
lawyer's advice.
Thank you.
Rupa is still here? Or?
Yeah, I'm here, Aditi. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ketaki and Aditi, for this wonderful session. Right. So my question is, so my company has a policy wherein the employees cannot sign the recommendation letters. So in that case, would you recommend like what are the other ways that we can get this done for the critical role?
If your employees cannot sign recommendation letters, then all you have is you explaining what you're doing at your work in the petition, and then independent researchers. Any person outside your job can talk about the work and your contributions. So that would be the letter that you can give. So rely more on the external letters, and for leading role you'll have to ask your lawyer how to justify that, because letters are very important in that criteria to showcase what you're doing is valuable. So more of a lawyer question to specifically understand how to go around that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Peter.
These are great questions, folks. Quick heads up, we are going to go till 1:10 p.m. Ketaki, can you stay for 10 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. We are going to take all the questions up until then. The question that you asked, Rupa, is also the question that somebody named Priya Mohan asked in the Slack channel. So go to the Slack channel, join it, and just look for Priya Mohan, and you see the responses that she received from other folks in the Slack. So part on the fact that statistically speaking, what you're experiencing, somebody else is experiencing as well. So if they've figured it out, you'll figure it out as well. Jiban, let's go.
Thank you, Aditi.
Jiban Das. All right. Time is of the essence, Jiban. We're going to move on to Vedant.
Hello, Aditi and
Oh,
Ketaki.
Jiban. Okay, all right. I'm giving like 2 seconds for people to like ask their question. Because I want to get to these questions. All right, Jiban, go for it, and then I'll
Yeah, thank you, Aditi and Ketaki, for this wonderful session. Thank you, both of you, for helping the community. My quick question is, with every government and they are that have policies that come into place, last the government had different policy, this government has different policy. So when you are focusing on your niche, I will be focusing on the policies as well, what one government supports and another government doesn't support. So based on that, do you think there are a few niches that's not going to be considered by this current government if you actually focus your application on that?
I would say, Jibin, don't get into the nitty-gritty details of what USCI would consider and what they wouldn't, because that will only lead to more delay into the work that you can put in on your application. So discuss with your lawyer, and once your lawyer tells you that this field is good enough and we can target it, then just get started.
Okay, thank you, Kadiki.
Awesome. Vedant.
Thanks, Aditi. Hi, Ketki. I just had a quick clarifying question. I think someone earlier spoke about participating in expos and conferences and representing your company. And I'm just curious, what does that mean? Does that mean like you're participating as a speaker, or just does participating as someone who's representing your company also count?
If you're participating as a speaker, then you can, because you're sharing something unique, right? If you're talking about original contributions, then it has to be something that you have contributed. So in that, if you're presenting, that is more valuable. If you're just attending the expo, then that attendance is not as valuable. So then that can become a small part of the leading role letters that you get, where it is mentioned in addition to all other things you've done. But presentation is essential for original contribution if you want to include it.
Got it. Thank you.
Kanupriya.
Thank you, both of you, for doing this. It's very, very helpful. I am currently on B1, B2 visa, and I have prepared very well for talent visa in the UK, and I'm about to file that in a month. But I really want to move to US. So can I apply for EB1A from outside of US? Currently,
You
I'm
can.
traveling.
Yes. Anyone can apply for EB1A. You don't have to be in the US to apply. So you can still apply.
Okay. Thank you.
Lavanya.
Hey, hi. Thank you for the wonderful session. So I have a pretty different question. I think the theme of this session was around EB1A, but I'm from a research background, specifically ML, and I was just curious to know like the differences between these two visas, but it looks to me it's pretty similar. So I wanted to understand from you, like, what made you decide to go for this one, because until now I was under the impression that this has, like a higher bar, but looking at your journey, I feel I have similar things that I can show or put up. So yeah.
So are you asking about difference between EB1A for industry focused and researcher based profile, or are you talking about two different visas?
Yeah, so I'm an industry researcher. I have been in the industry, but my position has always been into like ML research.
Yeah, so that's okay. You can still target EB1A. And as I said, since it depends on the field, mine was more industry focused, but yours can be research based. So in your case, citations and the publications would matter more,
Mm-hmm.
but you can work with your lawyer to highlight that part of your profile.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm going to drop somebody's link in the chat. If you are a researcher in the industry, he can be a good person to talk to. Divya.
Is that Shantanu? Shantanu Joshi as well.
Shantanu, I know, but this is Praneet Datta. He is right up what she's talking about her alley. So he got his EB1 as a independent, like as an industry researcher, masters, no PhD. So that could be a good
Yeah.
place.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Who is gonna go for next? Did I call somebody's name? No. Raman.
No.
See, it's Ramandeep Singh. Ramandeep. Karthik Chikuri.
Hey Aditi, thanks for hosting this and congratulations, Ketki. So my question is about like how did you come to a conclusion like your topics are right like for publishing the papers or anything? And in continuation to that I had a question like do you had any mentorship other than like a lawyer? Yeah.
Yeah, so for mentorship, completely depends on the kind of person you are and what keeps you accountable. In my case, it was just my boyfriend who kept me accountable. I didn't really have a mentor because I was talking to my lawyer every week and I was trying to do what she was telling me, and then I was trying to go at it with complete force. And what was your first question about?
How did you decide what topics?
Yeah, sorry. So the topics that I decided, this is something that I had done in the past, even before applying for EB1A. So I had, in general, presented about business strategies in product management. So most of my talks are focused on that, and I was able to use them for my EB1A. So I didn't really do the talks for EB1A at that point. I'd already done them, but as long as it fell under the product management umbrella, I was good to include them. So it has to be somehow related to your field, the baseline niche that I talked about in my presentation. So as long as it's related to your baseline niche, you're good.
Thank you.
Malvika Soran.
Yep. Hi. Thanks, Aditi. Thanks, Ketki. My question was around media coverage. So a lot of time, the products that we work for, their launch is covered in like big media publications, but you're not individually like named as somebody who's worked on it, right? So my question was whether this kind of media coverage is something that's worth including in the application, and if yes, then how to go about it.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about how you can use the evidence that you already have towards the criteria. And yes, it will work as long as you can prove. Often when these articles are published about our products, they don't mention our names. So you have to get a letter from someone in your company that can link your contributions to the product. So you just need a letter to link that and say, maybe you worked on this, maybe Malvika worked on this product and the product was published in this journal or in this media article. So then that still counts for published material about you.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks.
Neha Shinde.
Hello, hi Aditi and Ketki. So my question is, do we need active job in USA? Like I am dependent right now and looking for a job. So can we apply for EB1A?
Yes, you can apply for EB1A regardless of your presence in the country or your current status. Anyone can apply for it. So even if you're in India, even if you're coming to the US as a dependent, all of that is okay. And I would highly recommend that you create your own path by applying for this visa then.
Okay, thank you.
Shreyan Prabhu.
Hey, hi, thanks for the session, Ketaki. I just wanted to ask some query regarding the lawyer perspective. Whether you went with some free consultation calls to decide which lawyer, or you paid that $400 upfront and then chose the lawyer. And currently, I also have one more option to go with my immigration lawyer in my company. but they are asking me to go with applied individual or make it employer-based EB1A. So which one do you recommend?
So if your company is willing to write the petition for you, and you trust the lawyers to show exactly what is needed for EB1A, and they can show the real strength of your profile, then employment-based EB1A is not a problem at all. You can apply for it. And what was your other question, sorry?
How did you go about finalizing the lawyer? Whether you went with
Yeah,
peer
so right. So
consultation?
for the lawyers, I paid around $150. So typically lawyers schedule these, they have the option to give you profile review sessions for 150 to 200. So I scheduled those with 3 lawyers, but even before that, some lawyers allow 15 minutes of free consultation. But my problem is within 15 minutes, I cannot assess if this person is going to be good for me. So if I do a complete profile review session for 1 hour, I understand how they think, and that helps me decide to finalize that lawyer. So I shortlisted 3, and then I did profile review sessions with them, and based on that, I chose my lawyer.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
All right, folks, I'm going to drop a link. Since 158 of you stuck till the very end, so here's a little present for you. I did a session with an EB1A lawyer who has had experience of petitioning for EB1s before EB1 was cool. And I'm talking about 25 years of experience. So if you go to my YouTube channel, I've dropped the link in the chat as well. You'll see the recording of that talk. How do you choose your EB1A lawyer? Because, but like Ketaki said, I don't know how many times you heard her say that your lawyer, your lawyer, your lawyer. Your lawyer is the biggest ally that you're going to have, but it is juvenile and borderline dangerous to think that any lawyer holds that stick of magic. The decision that you take of which lawyer to choose is extremely important, and one that you should do a lot of rumination on and deliberation on before you hold on to their word. So yes, I agree with whatever Ketaki has said, that your lawyer is your biggest ally, but you need to be extremely informed before you make the decision, is this person my ally or not? So I hope that that article that I have shared in the chat, together with the YouTube link that I have provided, how do you select a lawyer, you take heed of that. Dobrina went with, Ketaki went with Dobrina Ustun or Utsun.
Yeah, I shared her LinkedIn profile in the, and the best part is she's also an immigrant who later on settled in the US. So she gets
it.
chase that we are fighting here, the fight for freedom.
Yeah, for sure. Folks, I know it's 1:13 p.m. The beauty of EB1 is the more questions you ask, the more questions come up. So there is no way that we are going to be able to go through all the folks over here. So starting from Varadarajan all the way to Divya, is there a way that Ketaki, they can still get in touch with you and get their questions answered?
Yes, so I shared my LinkedIn profile in the chat. Let me share it again here. So it's on the top of the chat. But if you can all send me your questions on my LinkedIn profile, and then just mention that you were a part of this session, and I will prioritize answering you first.
Awesome. Folks, this was incredible. 157 people still stuck around. So what final words of advice would you give to everybody here, Ketaki? What can they leave with?
Okay, so I would reiterate my point that you don't have to be an Einstein to get the Einstein visa. And it's something that is completely attainable to anyone as long as you're ready to put in the work. Also, there are no shortcuts. So I want to mention that some people have been reaching out to me, and they've been mentioning they are working with firms who charge $50,000 to quickly create your EB1A profile and guarantee green card within 2 months. So I want you all to stay away from scams like that, because this is something that has to be organically done, and it's always going to be good for your career, whatever you do as a part of EB1A. So it'll make you a very confident person at the end of it, and a highly accomplished person. So don't shy away from putting in the hard work that it requires. It's not an easy thing to achieve, but it's completely worth the reward you get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I couldn't have said that any better. So thank you again, Ketaki. I hope you're having that morning cup of tea without any tension, Ketaki what to do now. I can relax and drink that cup of chai. Congratulations on your ordinary as hell life. And for folks who came in here, if you want to leave a kind word, you taught me to sort of send you an email to leave a testimonial. I'll screenshot all of those and I'll send it over to Ketki. So thank you again and congratulations to you. Sitting around on a Sunday morning, listening to how to get authorship, original contributions, how to talk to your attorney, how to talk to your boss. This is not easy, but you're doing it. And a couple of years later, you're going to thank yourself that you did. So congratulations to you, and I'll see you at the next event. Thanks, Ketaki.
Thank you. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
আমি পিয়াজ আৰু কি
মানে মই সমাজত সেইকাৰণে মই কেতিয়াও নুশুনো এইবিলাকে উল্টা পুল্টা হৈ থাকে একদম নুশুনো মই সদায় মোৰ মানে থাকো বেয়া পালে কি আপোনাকে পাব বেয়া পালে আপোনাকে পাব এতিয়া মই যিটো দিছো বদচ আপোনাৰ আকৌ কথা পাতিম সেয়া যিটো তোমাক কৈছো যিটো কি হ'ব যিটো পিছে মুখস্থ কৰি থাকা কি মুখস্থ কৰি থাকিম গানযোৰ কৈছে মুখস্থ কৰি থাকা বোলে মই যিটো দিছো ৰ'ব বাইদেউ আপোনাক আকৌ কথা পাতি যিটো তাৰমানে আছে ওচৰত সেইটোৱে ভাল সেইটো যদি মানে ষ্ট্ৰং হেৰি হয় বাইদেউ হেৰি কৰিছো মই যিটো দিছো ৰ'ব আকৌ কথা পাতিম কিবা দিয়া
বাইদেউ হেল্ল' শুনিছো গুড মৰ্ণিং কি খবৰ
ভাল যিটো তোমাৰ এটা হেৰি আছে তোমাৰ মানে কি ডিউটি এটা আছে
কওকচোন
সমাজৰ কাৰণে
কওক
সংগীতাই ধৰি আছে বাইদেউ আপুনি আকৌ এবাৰ ৰিমাইণ্ড কৰি দিয়ক তাৰমানে এবাউট দ্য কোৰাছ মই বোলো ঠিক আছে মই ৰিমাইণ্ড কৰি দিম তাৰপিছতে মই বোলো মই তেতিয়া ক'লো মই যিটো এটা ট্ৰেক দিছে মানে কি এওঁলোকে পঠাইছে মই কোৱা নাই আমি প্ৰেক্টিচ কৰিছো তাৰমানে সেইকাৰণে তাৰমানে মই কৈছো ট্ৰেকটো মানে ভাল লাগিছে দি দিছে আৰু মই ভাবিছো সেইটো ট্ৰেক তাৰমানে দি দিম আমাৰ তাৰমানে গ্ৰুপটোত কৈছে হ'ব দিয়ক বাইদেউ আপুনি প্ৰথমে ৰিমাইণ্ড কৰি দিব তাৰপিছতে যিটো বোলে দি দিয়ক মই সেইকাৰণে তোমাক কৈছো মই এইমাত্ৰ আকৌ তাই মোক ৰাতিপুৱা আকৌ মনত পেলাই দিছে তাৰমানে কৈছে বাইদেউ পাহৰিলে নেকি মই বোলো পাহৰা নাই বিজি আছিলো ৰিমাইণ্ড কৰি দিওঁ মানে মই গ্ৰুপটোত তাৰপিছতে মই দিয়াৰ পিছত তুমি ট্ৰেকটো দি দিবা হা গ্ৰুপত
গ্ৰুপটো মানে সেই আচ্ছা আমাৰ এটা গ্ৰুপ খুলিছে নহয় আচ্ছা কিন্তু এই আপুনি সুধিছিলে কি কয় ৰূপমে যে এটা ট্ৰেক বনাইছিল আমি তাতে যাওঁতে
নহয় মই ক'লো মানে কি আমি মানে কি মই এই বোলো সেইদিনাখন যে আমি চাইছিলো তাতে আমি চাইছিলোতো হয় নহয় তাতে আমি চাইছিলো নহয় ৰূপমৰ ঘৰত মই সেইদিনাখন যে চাইছিলো তাৰমানে সেইটো বোলো সেইটো চবে প্ৰেক্টিচ কৰিলে সুবিধা হব নেকি কাৰণ তাততো লিখাখিনিও আহে গতিকে তাৰমানে কৈছে বাইদেউ হ'ব দিয়ক বোলে সেইটোৱে ভাল হ'ব আচলতে তাই ভালে মানে কি তাই বোধ কৰো মজপুৰালি ভালে পাইছে মানে কি ৰূপম এতিয়া বিজিও চাগে
কৰবাত যাব বুলি কৈছে মাৰ্চত সেইবিলাকৰ
যাবতো এতিয়া তাৰমানে ডিব্ৰুগড় ইউনিভাৰ্চিটিত তাৰমানে কনভকেশ্যনত হেৰি কাৰণে মাতিছে
আচ্ছা সেইবিলাকো আছে তেনেহলে
প্ৰিপেয়াৰ কৰিব লাগিবতো মই সেইকাৰণে তাই ভালে পাইছে বোধ কৰো তাৰমানে মই বোলো যিটোৱে এনেকে পঠাইছিল সিহঁতে মই কোৱা নাই যে আমি প্ৰেক্টিচ কৰিছো বুলি কাৰণ আকৌ বেয়া পাব পাৰেতো অকলে প্ৰেক্টিচ কৰি সেইকাৰণে তাৰমানে মই কৈছো কি আমি সেইটো প্ৰেক্টিচ কৰিলে কেনেকুৱা হয় তাই কৈছে বোলে হ'ব দিয়ক বাইদেউ সেইটোৱে হ'ব কিন্তু আপুনি বোলে দি দিব মানে ট্ৰেকটো মই বোলে যিটোক দি দিব কওঁ কৈছে নহয় বাইদেউ আপুনি ৰিমাইণ্ড কৰি দিয়ক প্ৰথমতে তাৰপিছত যিটো ট্ৰেকটো দিব কি কৰিবা এতিয়া মই এতিয়া পুতলাৰ নিচিনাকে হেৰি কৰি আছো আৰু
তাৰপিছত এই কি কৰিছেনে আপুনি পঠাবনে আগতে কিবা মেছেজ দিব তাৰপিছত মই দিম লিংকটো
মই এই মেছেজটো দিওঁ তাৰমানে এই মাত্ৰ দিওঁ মই সেইকাৰণে বোলো মই আকৌ বোলো ডিলে কৰিলে আকৌ বোলো মানে কিতা ইমান হেৰি কৰি আছে মই আচলতে মই বিজি থাকো পাহৰি থাকো জানা এইবিলাক তাৰমানে এতিয়া ইছানী আহে হেৰি কালি মই আকৌ তোমালোকতো বিজি থাকা চবেই বিজি থাকে
তাকে
পাহৰি থাকো
নাই একো নাই আপুনি দি দিয়ক মই লিংকটো পঠাই দিম তাৰপিছত
ঠিক আছে মই মোৰ কামটো কৰি দিওঁ তাৰপিছত তাৰমানে মম্মী লগত
জাষ্ট কৈ দিয়ক মম্মী বোলে ঠিক আছে মই তাইক কৈ দিম আৰু পিছত কথা পাতিব বুলি অ'কে বাই